Welcome to Through the Trauma podcast. My name is Amber Larkins, published photographer, storytelling expert, visual artist, entrepreneur, speaker, and coach. This podcast was born from one question: how do I get inspiring stories of triumph out to the people who need to hear them the most? Come with me, enter my world, where lives are getting changed, heroes are getting developed, and greatness is being achieved. Hello and welcome to another episode of Through the Trauma podcast. I am Amber Larkins, your host, and today I have with me Dr. Axa Yokes. She has a very profound background in science. She has a master's in physiology, a specialty degree in biotechnology, PhD in microbiology with a focus on genetics, and she won a first prize award, 12 inventions, and was nominated as a person of extraordinary ability. But she quit science to build her own company, in which she failed dramatically. But now she follows her passion in helping people, and she's published a book called Stop Calling It Comfort Zone. Be uncomfortable to be comfortable to succeed. And in this book, she describes an innovative technique about how to rewire links in our brain. And this is going to be a very interesting conversation because I also agree with the whole idea of being uncomfortable to be comfortable to succeed. I think it's a requirement in life. So Dr. Yokes, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you for inviting me, and let's help as many people as it's possible, because the world needs that. People are starving for the wisdom. There is so much noise out there, and people are so confused that whenever we have the chance, because whenever you go through the trauma and you found the way out, that's what can help people.
Mm-hmm. It's so true. And it's part of the reason why this podcast platform even exists, is because I think that there's purpose to the pain, and coming through on the other side, you can truly help people. And there's purpose to being uncomfortable, either putting yourself in uncomfortable situations to rise above, and or being uncomfortable by not a choice of our own, but life circumstances makes us uncomfortable. So I think this is going to be an awesome conversation. I can't wait to hear your take on a lot of these things, because obviously you've written a book about it. You're quite an expert in this area. So first of all, why don't you tell me kind of what inspired you to write this book?
I believe the failing, because I was quite successful in science, and then I decided to quit and to start my own company, and I failed miserably. It was very painful because I was used to have success for over 15 years. And every time when I would even apply for the scholarship, the project, whatever there was, I would get it instantly. I had 12 inventions, and in 1 month I started to fail as many times as I succeeded within 15 years. And it wasn't very funny experience. And I was going through very hard times because I lost my dad, then another life-changing circumstance in our family, then my personal trauma. Then I moved to live to the US all by myself. And everything was happening within just only 6 months, the gap in between. I didn't have the time to recover from the previous and really very hard trauma. And then another one. So you in between, when normally you have the time to adjust, I didn't have that time. And when I realized that I'm failing, I cannot start my own company because of the reason. Because when you fail and you take the responsibility that you are behind the failure, that's the best lesson that you can learn through the life, because it helps you to change. Otherwise, you can go from one failure to another without the pivot that needs to be done. Otherwise, there is no progress. Every single failure, it's a brick that you can use to build your bridge towards the success, or you can use the same brick to beat yourself up. It's your choice. It's the same brick you can use as construction or the destruction, whatever you choose. So that's where I started. And then when I saw that I have the story to tell to the world, and the purpose of the book is really to help as many people as it's possible, because when I was going through the hard times, the only way that I would even survive is by hearing the stories of other people who went through the hardship. And I felt kind of the responsibility to share mine, because one day I was sitting with the manuscript in my hands and I was questioning whether I want to put that story out, because it's not a very funny story. And I asked myself, do I want anyone to know my story? And the answer was, what if any person who shared their story that helped you when you were going through the hard times, they would answer no to the same question that you have at the moment. You might not survive when you were going through the hard times. So it's kind of the responsibility to share and to help the other. It's kind of paying forward, because somebody paid forward for my survival. So that's where I was, and I decided to do that, especially when I discovered kind of the scientifically backed technique, which I was using without even understanding what I was doing, because my body was demanding intuitively just to do something, and it helped me. And because I have really very rich background in science, so I spent 3.5 years of deep research to understand why my body was demanding me to do that.
You say you have a background in science. Like, what is the connection here between your background in the science and then the what you're doing now?
I like the question. I did my master's in physiology of humans, so I know everything that's happening in our body. But I didn't. I decided to flip the focus for the science, because I didn't feel very comfortable to go for the experiments. But even because I studied for 5 years for that subject. So knowing how our body responds to every emotion that is triggered by the event that happened in our life, and then you just walk back and step back and you start to read the literature, because when you are in science, what you learn is how to even understand which literature has the potential, and it explains better versus something which is just casual publication. So that's what you learn through especially when you succeed in science. So I knew already how to read and to analyze the literature, and I had the background because I did my master's in physiology. I put all together and just analyzed the picture that I had assembled at that period, and the answer just came up, and I it was surprising to me. I didn't expect it. It wasn't done on purpose. But once I realized, I decided to continue my nature in science, like the researcher. I did some testing just to get the proof already, because once you have the hypothesis and you want to see the proof, is it just only some casual results, or it's something that you can tell to the world that this is scientifically backed up? So by scientific is like the physiology or the biochemistry that shifts in our body depending what we are going through or the events, and every event triggers the emotion in our body, whether we want or we don't. That's something that many of us miss when we are trying to rewire the links that we have in our brain, because we think that if I feel something and I just give the command to my brain to feel differently, it cancels the biochemistry from the unwanted emotions. That's not precisely correct. So you still have both biochemistries. That's why it's so hard to rewire the links that we have in our brains, because once you have the emotion, you have the trigger, and you start to shift the biochemistry. And depending where the scale will just trend, this is what you will experience. You still have both biochemistries. That's the trigger that people need to keep in their mind, that the new emotion doesn't cancel the negative. Let's say something negative happens, and normally you would go for particular relief method, the coping mechanism. So people think that if they create some positive emotion for the new event, it will cancel the previous. It doesn't cancel. That's why whenever you start to build a new habit, you have to do it consistently, because the new habit doesn't cancel the old one. It's just only whatever you experience and you multiply, that's just overbalance the previous negative reaction or the emotion that you have. Then you start to rewire step by step, link by link, and everything that you have connected to that particular event needs to be reconnected. If you have even one trigger which can take you right away back to your so-called comfort zone, and you will do you will follow the habit which you want to stop, this is what you need to break as well. Everything which comes to your so-called comfort zone, you have to break. You have to relink, you have to create the new links, and then you can continue. Because when we call the zone where we're unhappy, unhealthy, and unfulfilled to be a comfort zone, what's the command that we give to our brain? That we are comfortable to be unhappy. We are comfortable to be unhealthy and unfulfilled. And we are so surprised that our brain will sabotage ourselves. No, because from the very beginning, you set up the level that I'm comfortable to be unhappy. Why would I even bother to quit my comfort zone? Because if I convince myself that it's temporary, I need to be uncomfortable to succeed, you will slide back to your comfort zone. Why? Because you think that if you start to build a new habit and new biochemistry depending on the new habit, you automatically cancel the negative biochemistry. No, it still keeps producing. So whatever you push further, this is what you will experience. If you push further, if you multiply the positive habits, this is where your biochemistry will be. But still, you have to stop feeding your negative emotions. Otherwise, if you keep feeding both of them and they're at the same level, whenever you go back to react immediately, the chances that you will react with the old habit, which was built for decades, it's already stronger link that you have for this negative habit that you had. So the new one can drop down dramatically and leave you only with the negative habit. So once you start to multiply the positive habit or the beneficial habit without multiplying or feeding the negative habit, that's where the transformation starts.
Gotcha. So I think I'm following you. I will say, like, scientifically, like, science is a little bit, like, over my head. So I'm tracking with you, though. But I would love to, like, if we took a specific example and you kinda walked through that example. So, um, for example, I was just at a business event recently, and one of the major talks or, focuses on this business event was money and how we have a lot of mindset around money. If we take money, for example, and I say, I have a lot of negative, like self inflicting mindsets around money that's preventing me in a lot of areas. It's keeping me stuck. If we were to use that, what I'm hearing you say, or what I think I hear you say, is that I can go in and put all of these positive thoughts like, money is good and I can use money for XYZ and this is, and I can, do missions and help people and make impact. And I can insert all of these positive things inside of my brain. But if I'm not breaking negative mindsets around money, I am still going to continue to be emotional sometimes and maybe go shopping and spend money that I shouldn't. Or, and I'm just kind of really trying to break it down on elementary level because I need it broke down on elementary level when we're talking science and specifically things in the brain. When I think of these different rewiring things inside of the brain, it gets complicated because it's like, okay, it makes total sense, but when I put it in practicality, like, what does that actually look like?
Do you remember, maybe you had also this example from the biology classes when they had the champ in the boat surrounded with the water and there is a fire. So the champ had the bowl with the water, and they showed that the champ can take grab the water from the bowl and stop the fire. Even being surrounded with the water, the champ doesn't realize that there is more water outside of the boat. It shows how conditioned we could be in life as well. And unfortunately, this is shown on the biology classes for the animals, but we forget that we are also animals. So when we have any example, we have to have the particular example which is so close to our, then we start to realize. So you are completely on the track. When it comes to money, what do you associate with the money or whatever is happening in your life? If let's go back really, because everything comes from our childhood. So if you grow up in the family where money are demonized, like it's evil, rich people, this, whatever you were told, but still you learn that whenever there is no lack in the family, it's a bit better life. So you create these conflicting beliefs in your mind regarding the money, and you keep reliving that in your life, whether it's through what you do to achieve your goals. So when you create this conflicting belief from the very beginning in your mind, whether it's money, relationship, work, progress, health, that's how you continue living. Because what you put in and what you get out, this is where the secret is. When you want to grow roses, you don't seed the apple and expect to have the roses. Exactly the same is with the money. If you put in what will bring you money, then you will have the money. If you don't put what you need to make the money, you will not have the money. Plus, if you have the coping mechanism to relieve your stress, whether it's to eat sweets, and you stop eating sweets, but you change it to go for the social media, did you stop your habit? No, you just changed it. You changed the relief mechanism, but you still depend. That's what I meant by we think when we start to multiply the positive attitude or the habit, we automatically cancel the old one. No, we still experience that. That's why you have to multiply the positive habit even stronger, more intensive, to so dilute the negative biochemistry, then you will benefit. Let's say if you go for the fitness, or if you learn one trick how to make money, or one tactic how to make the money, can you dilute the entire ocean with one drop? No, it's impossible. You learn just only one tiny drop, and then you add to the ocean, and then you think it will multiply itself. It's impossible. You have to multiply that one drop as many times to completely replace the entire ocean that you had before. Once you start to dilute it, you have to replace it. Because even if you come to break it even, you have 50% for the biochemistry from your previous habits and 50% the biochemistry from the new habits, then whatever you start to feed, this is what will dominate in your biochemistry. But still, you have the negative one. So you need really completely to cancel or never to feed that, because once you start even to add the drop, you remove the drops that you already created for the positive habit. But we should never forget that we created the habit for over decades, and we already have something. And once you start to build the new habit, it's not, you are not building the new habit, you have to replace the old ones. And by replacing, you need to stop feeding this, and then you can build the new one.
If you are struggling to, say, lose weight or gain muscle, or you're trying to make some transformation in your body, I've often said that I can take out burgers. You still have to add in some type of food. You just replace it with something healthier and find those substitutes. If I like sweets after every meal, I need to find something. Maybe I have a piece of fruit after every meal. Let's take like smoking, for example. If you have someone who smokes cigarettes, it's a very addictive habit. And it's like sometimes it's really hard to just quit cold turkey. And so you'll have people that will possibly like they quit smoking and then they replace that with food, which is not more healthy necessarily, but depending on what they eat. But being able to replace that habit of doing with some other type of habit to compensate that time that you would be busy doing that.
I like the analogy for eating the sweet after having the meal, because I spent 3 months trying to find out the answer. Why do we even go for the sweets after we had the meal? And when it's my idea, it's my theory, I might be very wrong, but it answered my question 100%, and I don't doubt. So when you eat the meal and you eat the sweet, what is the taste that you have after you had the sweet after the meal? What you normally feel? Nauseous, right? You don't
I
eat the, no, seriously, like when you had the meal and you have the sweets, what's the feeling that you have? You don't want to eat. You feel like
full.
you are
You feel full.
more
Yeah.
than full, right? Why it doesn't happen with when you eat only the meal? In my idea, the reason that we go for the sweets right after, because the feeling that you are full, that's the only way that you come. It's when you are missing on some progress in your life and you need that emotion of being full. So you don't come to that emotional like the biochemistry, let's call it biochemistry, through your life, and you want to achieve more, but somehow you are stumbling. So you are at the point where you don't like where you are. So you want to see more progress in your life versus what you have. That's why you need to get that feeling of fullness from somewhere. And the only way to receive it, it's not when you only have the meal, but when you do the contrast, when there is a difference, when you had the meal and then you go for the sweets and you feel this, you have that emotion, like that feeling of the fullness. I don't want anymore. That's the only way that you feel that biochemistry, and your body, your brain doesn't see the difference where that fullness come from, whether it's because you did the progress at work or it comes from the food. You still have the same biochemistry. Your subconscious, the limbic brain, reads that you achieved what you wanted during the day, and it gives you this emotional fulfillment and the happiness. That's why every time when we have the meal, we need to go for the piece of the sweets. And we don't go for the sweet as a taste of the sweet, but that's the, like, the contrast of the taste that gives that emotional trigger fulfillment. Let's rethink and relive the days when we were very happy. We don't want even to eat, right? You feel like you are full already because emotionally you meet your needs. When we don't meet our needs in the different fields of our life, whether it's a relationship, it's our business, the money, financially, health wise, we are not there. We don't feel that fulfillment, and we start to compensate in different ways. That's exactly when we stop smoking. The person stops smoking and they start to eat. Why? Because anyway they need to feel that fulfilled, the emotional fulfillment. Or we stop to eat the sweets and then we go for the shopping. We stop shopping because it's very costly. Then what do we do as the next? We go for the social media. We need to check the videos, the funny videos, or anything which gives us that emotional trigger, which we meet what we needed for that day. Once we hit that limit, you feel your limbic brain reads as you feel a lived complete day, and you trigger that part in the brain which tells, oh, you reached the limit for today. And then you start the new day, and again you go through particular events which don't make you to be as happy as you wish to be, and then you again slide right back to which gives you that fulfillment. So that's another way to replace your addiction to feel that fulfillment. What I am doing, and it helps me, I convince myself and I'm talking to myself that it's fine not to be fulfilled because you are in process. You don't need to feel that every single day. You kind of lower your expectation per day, but it also helps you don't lower the goal at all. I'm not talking about lower your goal, but once you have this goal and you think that you have to feel this emotional, you have this emotional gap per day because you are here with the progress and this is your goal. So if you go step by step and you don't break that expectation that you have to have that emotional trigger that you would have once you achieve your goal while you are moving forward, this is what will break the addiction to emotional fulfillment that we replace with the different triggers during the day. And once you not convinced, but still you admit that it's fine, that you are in process, you don't need to feel that I achieved what I wanted for this day. So limit your tank for the fulfillment per day, but don't expect to have the complete tank fulfilled when you have the entire goal achieved. Then you will break down that habits. Then you will not feed your negative habits anymore, because you don't need that. You need to admit that wherever you are and where your goal is, there is a gap, and you don't need to fill that gap in one day. Admit that it will take time, and then per day you will shift how you fill your emotional tank with different emotions. Why? Because when you start in the morning, depending on the biochemistry you end up last night, this is where you start in the morning. If you end up every single day by, let's say, watching some senseless or not very beneficial videos, the funny videos, you start in the morning with the biochemistry that you end up the previous day. So if you keep repeating the same, you become addicted to that shot of adrenaline or whatever emotion that it triggers. Once you start to feed that negative habits, you will demand more, and more.
I think there's a lot of validity to like the things that you're saying here, because I think the problem or the hard thing for human beings comes the place that it gets really hard is, we want to live in the moment, yet we still want to be disciplined in the moment. And so there's a lot of times where you want, like you said, that quick dopamine hit that's like, oh, this fulfills me in the moment, like whether it be through a video or it be through whatever I'm eating or whatever I'm doing, if I'm smoking, whatever kind of habit, think what's happening in the brain. What makes it so difficult to break these things is in the moment you could want, like, I want to better my body. I want to better myself. I want to better. I don't want to gravitate to that, if I have this particular addiction. But then we catch ourselves without even thinking, picking that thing up and doing it again. So an alcoholic gravitates right back to drinking, or a smoker will pick up a cigarette, or if you're addicted to your cell phone, you pick it up without even realize. It's like second nature. I don't know the answer. I'm sure you do, and I want to hear what you have to say about it. But for myself, in those moments where I don't like to feel addicted to anything. So if I start to feel like I'm feeling addicted, like I have an addiction to sugar. I'm just going to be honest. Like, sugar is one of the hardest things to break. And I have to do detoxes sometimes for like 3 months of like no sugar. And I'll do 3 months of no sugar just because I don't want to ever feel like I'm addicted to it. But in that moment, this is the thing. So 1 week in or 2 weeks in, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm craving sugar like crazy. I have to fight through that addiction, and it's really hard. But this all circles back around to your book, which is stop calling it a comfort zone, because as human beings we gravitate to this comfort in the moment.
I like that. And I would even back a little bit and describe on the biochemistry level, because that's kind of something that we are missing a little bit. So in the modern social media, they call it everything to be hormones. So there are hormones and there are neurotransmitters, dopamine, serotonin, which are called to be hormones of happiness. Those are neurotransmitters. What's the difference? So the hormones are produced by the endocrine glands, which are located in different parts. And this is something we can never control. No human in the world can control that, because that's the coping mechanism that the nature created to save our life, or this is how we react. This comes and controlled by our limbic subconscious mind, because we need to survive in any situation we live. Then whenever there is a reaction, this is when our cautious mind, our cortex, starts to produce neurotoxins, they are produced only when we analyze the situation, we assess the situation. So if you want to break the habit, before you break the habit to produce the hormones, you can, it's harder to produce, it's harder to break already the consequence versus to break the cause. And this is where the adrenaline that I was talking about, because dopamine is the reaction. This is what comes after. So when your body is on the higher level, it's jacked up and you are full of adrenaline, which just pushes you for the action, whether it would be positive, then you will get that shot for the dopamine, serotonin, whatever your body demands, or you will even go for the negative, but that fulfillment, it will come from whatever you give as a reaction, because once you have the hormone, you have to react to that. That's exactly what I was talking about, the negative habit. And then when you start to build the positive habit, because the negative habit, let's call it, which you cannot control, it's the hormones, which nobody in the world can control. They are produced, you have to react. So once you break down that link between how and what you expect from the day, then you can shift what to expect. Just realize where you are. Don't set the higher expectation per day. Break down the path to your goal and know that every single day is where you achieve the goal. Every single day is also a step to your goal.
Are you saying that every single day you make a concerted effort to shift ideology, so you're making incremental changes every single day to get better and better and better until finally the habit's broken? But you have to
Yeah.
be intentional and conscious about not putting back in any negative habits.
Yes. So when you have the analogy for the ocean and diluting it with one drop, that's exactly when you have the ocean of hormones, which you cannot control. And then you start to dilute it with the emotions, which are produced by your cautious mind. But the cautious mind doesn't work all the time. So that's why you need to give the like the command to your cautious brain to analyze, and then your limbic brain starts to produce the neurotoxin, which is responsible for that emotion. Unless you realize, because if you check the social media, your brain doesn't go like, okay, let's produce this. No, your brain start to analyze, okay, I like that. Then it gives you the shot of dopamine. If you are happy, it gives you the shot of serotonin, because you analyze the situation and then your body realizes what shot to give you. So if you start to produce the base, which the only way that you can satisfy is when you start to produce the neurotransmitter, they need to click. Unless they click, you would have this base, which is your habit, the old habit, and you will not meet your need per day. So the only way to break down this chain is to stop producing the base, which needs to be met. Stop producing the need. Stop expecting that you would lose 40 pounds in one day. Let's put it that way. If you have the habit to lose 40 pounds, you need to set up the achievable goals per day. You want to lose 1 pound per day. So that's achievable. If you want to lose 40 pounds per day, it's impossible. So you set up the base for 40 pounds. You don't meet that, it's impossible. And then because you don't meet, your body doesn't produce these shots and you don't meet your need. And you keep repeating to yourself that you didn't achieve your goal. You would be unsatisfied with the situation, and then you will go back all the time to your old habit, because we are humans. We need to meet our needs. So the way to break down the old habits is to create the new habits. Because once you keep telling to your brain that you need to break down something, break, it's stronger word versus when you say I need to replace. Because your brain reads, okay, if I break whatever I have, what if I don't create the new one? Before I create the new one, can I break? What if it stays empty? So those thoughts start to flash your brain. But once you say, okay, I need to replace that, then it gives you better command. What is the action that you need to do? I need to replace. Then you realize that when you replace, you have something and you need to replace. So you need to stop feeding this, and then you just replace. When you dilute your ocean with one drop every single day, at certain point you would come to have as many drops to completely replace. Just create the smaller task that you can achieve and step there and admit that you achieved. Feel that biochemistry of fulfillment. You achieved that. The technique is described in the book in details. I want to step back and to explain a little bit about the technique, what the technique is about. It's more to raise your tolerance towards particular emotions. So what we started with, the negative old habit and the new like the beneficial habit that we want to create. Once you start to raise and you are in between, you don't have that tolerance. So you have particular biochemistry and you are addicted to that. You are used to that for decades. But once you start to build up something, you extend your tolerance toward the positive emotions as well. When you go to fitness, the first day you hate the sport. You don't want to go back to gym, especially if you don't practice for 1 month, then you don't want to be back. But the first day, the second, the third, and then you start to raise your tolerance and adapt to the new biochemistry. This is when you add the drops and you start to dilute your ocean that you already had. And more drops you add, more you raise your tolerance and you adapt to the new biochemistry. That's exactly what people mean when they say you need to build the muscle, the resilience muscles, or any muscle that you they mean. It's by raising your tolerance to the new biochemistry which you are not used to.
Breaking habits is something that I've struggled through, but I've feel like I've got to like a healthy place of being able to break those. But I know it's something that people really struggle with. And I know there's areas even in all of our lives where there's certain things that we definitely struggle with for sure. I want you to tell my audience, like, they wanted to learn more about you and where they could get your book.
They can find my book, on Amazon. I'm very active on LinkedIn, and they can follow me on Facebook. And I'm doing the one-on-one coaching. If anyone is interested, I'm starting the podcast, by the way, as well.
Awesome.
So they can learn more about the biochemistry, how to change and how to sustain the change.
Now, are you Dr. Axa Yokes on those platforms? They would be able to find
Yes.
you from, okay. And I'll include links too in the show notes as well. I want you to wrap all of that up and tell my audience kind of what's the big takeaway that you would, if you had one thing to really leave them with, what would that be?
I think that would be stop calling something where you are anything but comfortable to be comfortable, because you confuse your brain. what you are comfortable with. If you are unhappy or unhealthy, but you keep calling it to be a comfort zone, you will sabotage yourself, because subconsciously you give the command that that's what is comfort for you. Once you change what is comfort and what is uncomfortable for you, what is discomfort, then when the shift will happen. Use the words properly, because this is how your brain reads the information. If you give the command wrong, you will receive the wrong action. Just change it, and then the world will change.
Oh, I like that. That's really profound. I do agree with you that, way too many times we focus on being comfortable, and it does prevent us from doing amazing things, because we are capable of doing so much, but we have to quit being comfortable, break the bad habits, increase the good self-talk and things that we're doing with ourselves, and then we can thrive on the other side of that. Well, thank you so much for joining us, and I do recommend checking her book out and getting to the bottom of this in your own life so you can improve. Thank you for listening to Through the Trauma podcast. If you have found value in this episode or believe in the mission behind what we are doing, please subscribe so that you never miss any future episodes. Also, be sure to check out our transformation project at transformationthroughtraumaproject.com, where we help inspirational stories get heard on a larger scale through multiple platforms. If you know someone who can benefit from this episode, please share it with them. Until next time.